and my name is Ilaria Parodi. I'm from the International Schools team at Pearson, and on behalf of the whole team, I would like to give you a very warm welcome and thank you for attending today's webinar and for being here and talk to us about biology for the IB diploma program. Before I introduce our speakers, I would like to draw your attention to the slide on the screen, which includes some house rules for today. Please take a few moments to familiarize yourself with the slides. And a couple of things to notice in particular are the chat box and the Q&A box. If you need to communicate with us, please use the chat box. If you're experiencing any technical issues, please put them in the chat box and we'll aim to resolve them for you. If you would like to pose questions on today's topics, please use the Q&A box. There'll be time for questions at the end of the webinar, and we'll try to go through as many questions as you pose then. Dr. Catherine Barber, who's Senior IB Publisher for Pearson, will join you and will moderate the Q&A sessions today. Catherine, not only she's a senior publisher for the IB curriculum, but she's also an IB alumna, so you'll be in very good hands for that part of the webinar. The webinar today will last for about an hour, and the recording will be available usually 24 hours to 48 hours after the webinar is finished, and will be published on our website. So you'll be able to watch it again or share it with your colleagues. And now, without further ado, I am delighted to introduce today's speakers, Alan Damon, Randy McGonigal, and William Ward. Alan Damon teaches biology and theory of knowledge in Paris at the École Active Bilingue Janine Manuel. He's committed to integrating technology into the classroom and promoting critical thinking skills. Randy McGonigal has been teaching for 40 years, the last 28 as an IB biology instructor. He has consulted on implementing and improving many IB programs in North America, and he has led over 90 IB workshops. William Ward has taught for 41 years, spending 23 of those teaching IB diploma biology. He has led over 60 IB biology workshops and has consulted with many schools in establishing the IB curriculum or in improving IB instructions at existing IB schools. And now I'll hand the time over to Alan, Randy, and William. Alan, Andy, and William, over to you now.
Great, thanks so much for the introduction. Good to see so many people on the list of attendees. If folks want to say a quick hello in the language of their choice, that would be great. Just type into the chat a little hello message from whatever country you're in whatever language you want to say, and then say what city and country you're in. That would help us to kind of see the range of folks that are with us today. So yeah, without further ado, we'll jump right in. So today's talk is going to be basically about the changes to the IB biology curriculum. So we're saying goodbye to the last guide, the present one for 2024, the last assessment in 2024, and hello to the new one in first assessment in 2025. So the cohort that starts this year is going to do this new program. So the first bit of news is good news that teachers who are familiar with the current program are going to be relieved that there's a lot of overlap and we don't see a huge massive overhaul. There's going to be a lot of elements that are very similar to the previous program. Maybe a disclaimer also that we are not the IB, so we are experts in this in the sense that we've had a sneak preview. We've been working with this document for about a year now because we got, as Pearson authors, we got to see a sneak peek at the program. So we've been working with this for a year and we're familiar with it. So we wanted to present it to people who maybe didn't have as much time to work on it. But we are not the IB, so obviously this is not an official IB workshop. You should be signing up for those and doing that separately. So where can you find the actual real official documents? Well, the My IB site is now has the current guide and the new guide, and it has in the Program Resource Center this nice website that I've taken a screenshot of with the guide and in practice, including the new assessment stuff. So there are specimen papers, etc. So it's super well set out. A big improvement might be over the old OCC for those of you who have been in the IB long enough. Do one of you guys want to take this slide?
Yeah, I will. I want to also welcome everybody. This is Randy McGonigal. I'm hoping in the audience there might be some of the teachers that both I and Bill Ward instructed in workshops over the years. Bill and I don't do that anymore, but we had many great memories of workshops throughout various areas of North America. So the slide we're looking at is what we've been working with now for the year or so that Alan was mentioning. And as you can see, it's a curriculum framework where the organization is by two subtopics, themes, which you see along the left side of the chart, of which there are 4. And then along the top of the chart, there are levels of organization, including molecules, cells, organisms, and ecosystems. So what this gives is basically a roadmap of the curriculum. In other words, it is the order that the guide presents the curriculum. And if you want to look at this and find something in the guide, you're going to first find the theme, and then in sequence will be the topics associated with molecules first, and then in that same theme, the topics associated with cells, and then organisms, and then ecosystems. And for many of us, this is kind of a new way of looking at the interrelationships of the curriculum. And we're going to talk about this later in a later slide in terms of how it can be approached. But one possible approach, and the approach that we took with the textbook, is to just follow this theme by theme and levels of organization, and we presented the text in that order. We all get used to, you know, in order and organization, you know, we go to both our digital and our actual file cabinets, and you know, we've got our own organization, and this is something that is going to be a little bit different for people. So we'll talk later, as I said, about different possibilities for presenting the information. It does not have to be in this order if this order does not make you comfortable.
All right. Bill, you want to add anything to that, or should we move on to the next slide?
No, that sounds sounds very good. I also would like to welcome everyone. And yes, like Randy, I have very fond memories of meeting so many teachers at workshops. And then to echo Alan, probably one of the best things a teacher can do with this new curriculum is to avail themselves of the IB workshops, which allows that interaction with other instructors and with the actual IB individual that leads the workshop in order to gain a better handle of this new curriculum that we're working with.
All right. So yeah, one of the biggest things in terms of what's new is the options are gone. So that also means paper 3 is gone. So that'll be probably the biggest change, or the biggest kind of shocker for most people who are familiar with the current program. But a lot of the stuff that was in the options has been shifted into the core, or into the AHL material, the advanced higher level material. So one example on one of the chapters I worked on was the idea of knockout genes. That was not in the core or the AHL material before, but now it was in option B, but now it has been moved to the higher level material in D1. So a section about mutation and gene editing, and there's many examples like that of things that were moved. Most of the stuff, I get the impression that most of the stuff that has been removed has been from those options. So the stuff that was very kind of particular to a particular option is basically gone. There is a bit less content. Those of you who've been teaching IB biology for a long time know that we teachers have begged the IB for many years to reduce the very, very heavy load of content, and they have done that to a certain extent. David Four from the Think IB website put together a nice little calculation where he said it's about 5% less if you just simply count the number of understandings and skills and applications. So is that really an accurate way of measuring the content? Tough to say, but it's a rough estimate anyway. And then another thing that's new and that's kind of fun is the linking questions. So helping us to see from that roadmap that we saw on the previous slide, how can we connect ideas and link things together. There are guiding questions, which are kind of these overarching questions that kind of make it clear why we're learning this stuff. You know, what's the purpose of you know, biology shouldn't just be memorizing a bunch of names and facts and diagrams. There should be a reason for learning it all and seeing the connections. Anything you guys want to add?
Probably just that, and you did say this, Alan, but I want to make sure people understand that they did not just move all the option material into the core and AHL. It was a very select process of you know, this topic or this subtopic now blended in with one of the new core or AHL things. So you know, it's when it says on a slide, the total syllabus is less content heavy. Obviously, they couldn't do that if they moved all of the option material into the core and AHL, and they did not do that.
All right. Okay. Moving along, so there are some changes in the assessment. Since there's no more paper 3, they've had to revamp papers 1 and 2 a little bit. Paper 1 now has 2 parts, so part 1A is the same as the old paper 1, in other words, multiple choice. But part B is database questions and questions on lab skills and the scientific method and things like that. So those of you familiar with the current syllabus and assessment would recognize that as basically the first part, part A or section A of paper 3, the current paper 3. So paper 1 is now going to be a longer exam. It'll take more minutes to do it, and it's two, if I understood correctly, it's 2 separate booklets, but done in the same sitting, one right after the other. And then paper 2 is very similar to the previous paper 2, but just longer. So now there's 2.5 hours instead of 2 hours 15 minutes for the HL exam, and it's 80 marks instead of 72. So there's still apparently the same total number of hours of time that students are sitting the exam, but it's redistributed over 2 papers. The third chunk of assessment is or ways of looking at how to assess their skills is the Group 4 project is now the collaborative science project. And of course, the last part of the assessment is the internal assessment. So what has been called the individual investigation is now the scientific investigation. And one of the reasons why they've taken the word individual out is that there are certain aspects of the work that they can do as group work. We won't get into too much detail on that, but basically the idea is that, for example, if students go on a field trip and they're working in a group and they collect a whole bunch of data, different students within that group could choose a research question. Each student has to have a different research question though, and use the data that was collected collaboratively in a write-up. But the research question would have to be different, and the students would have to obviously analyze the data on their own. So the group work is only really for helping each other out in setting up the experiments or collecting the data, but not in the write-up process. The criteria is slightly simplified, so personal engagement is gone. Each criterion now is equally weighted, 6 marks. So research design, data analysis, conclusion, evaluation, each one of those worth 6 marks for a total of 24. So not a huge overhaul, but maybe a few tweaks to the internal assessment. There are very specific instructions about what is allowed and what's not allowed in the guide, the new syllabus. Okay. So we're also obviously here to plug our new amazing, incredible 3rd edition, which we've been working extremely hard on. And it's great to have a fantastic team behind us. All the folks at Pearson who are just great about the, the photography that they use here on the covers and in the book, and the illustrations and the page layout and all that is just fantastic. So the 3 of us have been working on these books for, what is it, 18 years now, since around 2005 or 6, and it's been a pleasure all these years, and continues to be. You might notice one thing that's different on these books this time around is that the little blue dots at the top right hand corner is the stamp of approval from the IB. So this time around we've had the text checked by the IB, and we have our wonderful, beautiful stamp of approval there. Maybe you, Randy, you want to take this one just to show that we're following the same roadmap?
Yes. So this is what I was referring to earlier in terms of the roadmap and how it can be approached. So in the slide, you're looking at a good portion of the roadmap that we looked at the entire thing in the previous slide that I talked about. And again, it's organized into 4 themes and 4 levels of organization. And the textbook is going to follow theme A and everything that goes with theme A, and then theme B and everything that goes with theme B, etc. But you as a teacher do not have to do that. In fact, if you do not want to do that, this roadmap would be an excellent checklist or mark-off list in terms of what you have done. You will, if you do decide to change the order, you obviously will have to use any textbook that you use in a more creative way rather than following it from beginning to end. But there really isn't many complications with doing that. So if you are, much more comfortable with the whole idea of teaching in a sequence that allows you to do something like molecular biology first and cell biology second, and then, move through, whatever sequence that you're comfortable with, you're more than welcome to do that. But all of these collectively are going to, have questions placed on the IB exams. So, you want to make sure that you reserve time for everything in the roadmap and everything in the guide. So anything to add to that, guys?
One thing about it, as far as I'm sure all three of us authors, as we wrote these chapters, we made sure we referred to previous chapters in our writing. So let's suppose a traditional teacher with a traditionalist view was working through the molecule lens as far as to teach their particular subject. You can also, if you went the unity and diversity, you would find that you would be able to go back and look at carbohydrates and bring in any information from the past. It's a great review as far as the students move through the actual course. So I really found myself, probably if I was still in the classroom, changing as far as my way of looking at the course. Just because the book allows several different avenues of success as far as achieving a good understanding of the whole of biology.
All right. Maybe do you want to continue with this one?
One text feature that I really like is the idea of the syllabus content. When you start talking about that, we have all kinds of text boxes that the Pearson team put together for us that I think makes our book really outstanding. It allows the student to be comfortable as they learn a lot of information, a lot of detail. It brings in interesting information. It brings in links to TOK as far as for the student. We did worked examples, which there's not a large number of them in biology, but there are a few that we brought in when appropriate. Topic questions, we have end of unit IB style test questions included. And we made sure the vocabulary is emphasized in bold. The overarching nature of science is continually addressed as far as in the book. So the features of the book pretty much goes through the syllabus very efficiently and effectively, I think, to allow the student to be able to learn on their own so that classroom time becomes maybe a little bit more of a discussion situation and not so much as a didactic type of situation. Anything to add to that, gentlemen?
As it says at the bottom there, yeah, like any new vocabulary that the first time a word is introduced, you know, like endoplasmic reticulum or something, it'll be in bold. So that's helpful for students to kind of know which words they need to master. All right, so yeah, these are some of the you know, text boxes that are in the margins or across the page. Global context, theory of knowledge. There's not only the ones that are already in the program saying this is a link to TOK, but we authors often peppered in ones that we thought of as well. Other boxes are skills. So this one has not only the little skills symbol, but also that gray circle with a document, and it means that there is an additional resource on the electronic version of the book, the digital resources, where students can access a worksheet or some kind of activity to build their skills. It might be a lab skill or a fieldwork skill, something like that. Key facts, these are similar to boxes we've had in previous editions, just saying, like, you know, what's the most important idea in this on this page or in this subsection. Interesting facts, yeah, that's another box we have in there, just again trying to show how biology is connected to the real world, hopefully, and that these, you know, we're not just learning this to memorize a bunch of facts. There's you know, some logic to the sequence and to the topics. Maybe Randy, you want to do this one?
Yeah, continuation of the boxes. A lot of times in the hint for success boxes, what we're attempting to do is limit the knowledge. You know, one of the things that teachers and students struggle with sometimes is how much do I need to know about that? And if we know that there is a level that's easy to fall into and, you know, just get into incredible depth, but it's not something that is, you know, going to be fair game for testing. We're not going to tell you not to do it, obviously, but we're attempting to remind you that there is a limitation to what the curriculum calls for, and some knowledge of what that limitation is. The challenge yourself sections are truly meant to be thought-provoking, kind of a set of skills that you would want students to have practice with before they answer database questions, for example.
Yep. Bill, anything to add?
No, that pretty much covers it very well.
You want to do this one?
Sure. One of the features I'm most impressed with as I look at the book, anyhow, as a former teacher, are the illustrations. I think we have done a very good job as far as producing illustrations which clarify and to a degree simplify as much as possible key concepts that the student's going to be asked to know for the exams. This is a good example of one, just showing the difference between non-competitive and competitive inhibitors. And we have these throughout the book in attempt, like I said, not just to show what they have to know, but to clarify. As teachers, all three of us, when we were writing the book, kind of anticipate student questions. That's one of the things we've always done in the classroom. And illustrations are oftentimes one of the best ways to get across that main points and cut out some of the complexity which appears to come across in the text. So I really am impressed with the illustrations, photos. Alan has some wonderful photos I included some photos from my backyard, and I know we all included pictures, took a lot of time as far as with illustrations, photos to stimulate and to clarify as far as the students go. So I hope everyone will be as excited about the illustrations and our pictures as we are as authors.
Yeah, and often I'll send a very rough sketch when I'm not the greatest artist, and it'll come back a really nice, you know, clear diagram. All right. Oh yeah, who wanted to put this one in?
I voted to put this one. I think this is a really nice way to review at the end of the chapter, because we start the chapters with the IB guided questions, and then we as authors decided to put in the revisitation, the coming back to those guided questions, just to give some key points, which is very important to the students so they can see if they indeed did get the gist, the main gist of that particular chapter. And these occur just before we move into the practice questions for each of the chapters.
So in the book, we tried to make sure that we clearly indicated with these little HL flags here, the stuff that is only for the advanced higher level material. So a student who is in the SL group but has an HL book, or a teacher who has a mixed group, can clearly very quickly see what parts are for everybody and what parts are just for the HL group. This is different from the previous book where or the previous syllabus, I should say, where there would be a separate chapter. So for example, there would be something on enzymes in the core, for example, and then there would be a separate chapter later about enzymes. That's not true for the new. That's one thing that's different for the new program, is that there'll be a continuation within a chapter of HL material. Right, and that's true. Yeah, not just for the content and the chapters in the text, but also for the practice questions and And as we saw in the previous slide, the guiding questions as well. There are some that only relate to the HL material.
Alan, can I add something into that?
Sure.
This whole idea of the HL notifications within the book, it's particularly important knowing that teachers have all kinds of different groups that they're attempting to work with. And it is not at all unusual for classes to have both SL students and HL students, learning together in the same class at the same time. And that's a challenge. And it is true that we have a separate standard level textbook and higher level textbook, but it would be cumbersome in the same classroom to assign two different books that are going to have two different page setups, and you would always be giving assignments based on whether it's out of the SL book or the HL book. So in that situation, it is possible to use the HL book to teach both sets of students, because within the HL book, it's going to be marked which items and which sections, which questions are HL. And, you can do with that whatever you want in terms of the responsibilities of the SL student. But at least and can set your assignments based on that.
And to add to that, it's interesting to me, I always found in the classroom, because I had SL and HL students, the SL students, sometimes they wanted to learn a little bit more about a particular topic. And it was kind of nice for them to have that HL material available to them to look at and to just kind of increase their knowledge in a particular area. So yeah, it works pretty well as far as to have it positioned in this way with the HL available. Yes.
All right. So in addition to the biology material, there's also some chapters that we thought would be helpful, like TOK in biology. So looking at, because the TOK syllabus changed recently as well. So that has been updated so that it matches with things like the prompts and things like that that are in the new TOK program. And in fact, the TOK boxes, we tried as much as possible throughout the chapters to add a prompt when one fit well with a TOK box in the syllabus. But there's a separate TOK chapter. There's a separate chapter for the internal assessment work, going through the criteria and helping to guide students. There's a separate chapter on skills in terms of, it might be lab work, it might be measuring things, it might be field work, it might be how to set up an Excel spreadsheet to do a graph of the results, things like that. And there's an extended essay chapter. Am I forgetting any chapters? I think that's that's the extra chapters.
I think that's it.
Yeah. Right. And by the way, that TOK chapter is just outstanding. I'm really impressed with it. And the skills in biology chapter, as you look at it, you'll find that it has a lot of the statistical requirements that students may need to possess as far as moving forward into their internal assessment work.
Definitely, yeah. Bill, you want to do this one?
Yeah, digital resource highlights. Find that to be really a great feature of what we've produced. You've got the full answers to all the practice questions which exist in the text. We took a lot of time as far as looking for videos that would supplement the students' knowledge, knowing full well that the student's going to be looking on their own for videos also to help in their understanding of the various content statements. We have worksheets developed for most of the chapters, and for many of the chapters, we have both worksheets and labs, in some cases, multiple labs for the chapters. And these are required skills that we cover with those labs. So you have a very good, in the digital resources we have available, you have a very good lab manual, so to speak, for the students to work from. We took a lot of time as far as with command terms. We all know command terms are extremely important on the exams, and therefore we took time to take the command terms and to write explanations as to what would be required of the students if a particular question came up on the exam utilizing a particular command term. We also have auto mark quizzes, again allowing the students to do their self-checking to see if they are actually to the point they should be as far as in their progression toward being successful on the IB exam.
All right. So I think that just about wraps it up. Unless you guys have anything else to say, and we're going to open it up, I guess, to question and answers.
Thanks. So we did have one question come through already that I can actually answer, which is nice. So Rebecca asked about the answers and whether they are included throughout the book. So Bill already just mentioned this on the digital resources slide. But yes, the answers to all exercises, practice questions and challenge questions are all included both at the end of the ebook and then in a separate downloadable PDF. We didn't include them in the print book because we thought the print book was long enough and heavy enough already. But if you buy a print book, you get access to the ebook, so everybody will have access to it. We're working on the answers at the moment. We're just doing the final kind of answer checking. So they're not live on the ebooks yet, but they will be added in the coming weeks. So we've had a question about when will the books be available? So they are already, all of the books are in stock in the warehouse, ready for you to order. Will there be examples for practicals based on each topic? So that's one for the authors, please.
Good question. I would say not for every single topic.
Yeah.
We have a few labs, but not necessarily systematically for every single topic. No.
I think we did look at each of the skills that are required that are mentioned in the syllabus, and we did make sure there was a practical for each of those listed. So I think we've covered them pretty well.
Thank you.
We also had an eye when we put in practicals for training the skills for the internal assessment. In other words, a good way to look at your lab program is to look at not only what topics you are doing for lab work, but also what skills are you getting across. So I often suggested to teachers in workshops to sit down and make a list, which actually there is a list now in the guide of the skills that students need to be demonstrating and working with. And the labs that we put in had that as a focus. And I'm not going to say that it is a complete training program, but they are useful for getting students ready for their internal assessment.
Yes.
There was another question about the internal assessment chapter. Will you share ideas or a checklist too for the criteria?
Yeah, I'm trying to remember. It's been a while since I've worked on that. So checklist, maybe not that. I mean, certainly a list of things that would be expected in each for each criterion, yes. But in terms of ideas, meaning like here's a list of possible IAs that students could do. For me, I think that's really for the teacher, because every school is different. Every school has different resources. Some schools take their students to the beach or to a forest or something, and they do their internal assessment as field work. Some schools have amazing labs with incredible equipment, and other schools are a bit more limited. So I think the labs that we have suggested are certainly a starting point, and then students can take the skills that they acquire from those formative labs and apply them to a new original idea that they would have for their IA.
Thank you. So there's another question about book availability in Latin America. It is currently available. In the follow-up email, I think, Alara can correct me if I'm wrong, but I think there will be a link to the page where you can get in touch with your local rep. So look out for that, please. Somebody is asking about the number of pages. It's the same, or more or less the same as the previous books, even though the options are no longer in there. Is this because extra boxes and illustrations? It's hard to see that content is less when the book is so large. So I think, Alan, you kind of said there was only 5% difference, so it's negligible, I would say. Would you agree?
That's a very rough estimate. Yeah, just done by counting the number of understandings and skills and things like that. But obviously, we all know as teachers that some understandings take an hour to go through and some take 2 minutes. So it's hard to measure it that way. But yeah, there's a little bit less content, but not. Yeah, we were kind of hoping, all of us teachers, for more like 20% less, and the students were hoping for 20% less. But yeah, it doesn't seem to be that much less. Yeah.
Thank you. So somebody asked about the extended essay section and what that includes.
The extended essay question or section has most of the criteria that, or all the criteria that are going to be assessed as far as the student. Plus, when I wrote it, I made sure that I talked about some of the major things to be considered when undertaking a biology extended essay. Biology extended essays are oftentimes, for a lot of schools, difficult, but I found in my students, they all enjoyed them very much. So I always look forward to and encourage my students to do extended essays in biology, and found they did quite well. So I included most of the things they should check off, the safety features, the skills they would be required to show, statistical work that would be required as far as to come up with conclusions which are appropriate, and also the assessment, the criteria that would be present for the assessment, so the students would know exactly what to expect and how their particular essays would be marked.
Thank you. Have there been any changes to the command terms?
No. Quick, simple answer. No, the command terms are all identical to the present program.
Thanks, Alan. Do you know if the approach to answering exam questions will change, e.g. should we expect more questions where you have to link the themes?
I don't write the exams, so I don't know. But one way to kind of gauge that might be to look on the my IB website. They do have specimen papers for the new program, so that might give a little hint. But I do not know. That might be something to ask on the forum on my IB.
Yeah, and someone's asking about specimen papers as well. I guess that's another thing you need to go direct to the IB too. I don't know if they have specimen papers available yet.
Normally, I think there are.
Are all the tools, including the maths tools, included in the additional chapters with worked examples for students?
Yep. So things like median and mode, and how to construct a what's it called, box and whisker graph. How to do statistical tests like the chi-squared test. Yep, those all have worked examples. Yep.
Great, thank you. And Lisa's just said that the specimen papers are available on YIB. So thank you, Lisa. There's a couple of questions more that I can answer about kind of availability and samples and that kind of thing. So somebody asked about the ebook version, or is it included, or do you have to pick one or the other? So if you buy the print book, you get a code in the back, a scratch of code in the back to access the ebook, or you can just buy the ebook. Will the ebooks be updated over time, and if so, how frequently if there is a small error identified? So yes, we do reprint corrections if there are errors, and we update the ebooks. So I'd say the ebook is probably the best place to go for the most up-to-date version, as we obviously can't fix errors in the print books that you already have, but the ebooks are updated regularly if we do come across any errors. Somebody said that they like the table of contents, that it's very detailed. It helps you find the topics, like you can find karyotyping, even though it is within the species definitions. So thank you very much for that positive feedback. Somebody's asking about how the ebooks are accessed, if they're accessed through Pearson+. They are accessed through our Active Learn platform, which is where all of our IB titles are now available. And in terms of evaluations, so as I said in the follow-up email, I believe there will be a link to our web pages where you can get in touch with your local rep who can help you with evaluation copies, and we also have free trials of all the books, digital free trials of all the books available, and you can sign up for those on the website. But again, I'm sure there will be links in the follow-up email for everything that you need with regards to that. Natasha's asking, would the authors teach the course in the order of the roadmap themselves, since you have now a very good overview of the content?
Definitely not. No, I think one way of thinking about it or looking at the roadmap is that it's almost like a menu on a website where you just click on what you want to do next, and I feel like I would definitely jump around much more. For some reason, it gives me higher confidence to do the jumping around more than I would have in the past, because you can see it all on one page and you can say, oh yeah, I did that last time, so okay, I'll try that next. And oh, we need to know this before we know that, because it is true, one of the inconvenient aspects of the roadmap version is that sometimes a topic will be introduced or an idea will be introduced before that topic has been actually fully given in a future chapter. So sometimes it's better to actually jump ahead, cover something like genetics, and then come back to something that talked about genetics in a previous part of the roadmap. So I would definitely not teach it in order, but there's nothing wrong with teaching it in order, but I would definitely jump around more.
And I think that's going to be highly variable from teacher to teacher. I know when I first looked at the structure of the content, the roadmap, in other words, I could not imagine myself teaching it in that order. But after working with it, for a long period of time, I now think I would at least give it a shot and just see how that does lay out. Anything you do, anything you teach, anything students learn is background for the next thing that they're going to learn. So you're going to give up perhaps some of the background that you were used to having, but you're going to gain some other background. And if you learn what to put in when, I think it would be very possible. So everybody's got to answer that question for themselves.
Yes, I agree with that. Yes.
Thank you. So Natasha's just followed up with very helpful. Thank you. We're currently looking at the order. I'm worried it would take a lot longer to teach in that order, and time for HL is very limited. So I think we've answered all of the questions that have come in so far, but if I've missed anybody's questions, please repost them and we will answer them because we have a few minutes left. Larry, do you want to say anything about the follow-up email and sharing the recording?
Yes, of course. So as mentioned at the beginning, the recording will be available in a day or two. So we'll publish it onto our website, and we will be emailing you with a link to the recording so that you're able to access it and obviously watch it again or share it with your colleagues. And also we will share a link to a very quick, very short feedback survey. So we really will appreciate if you could complete that for us, and obviously let us know, let our speakers know the really good job, great job they have done today. And I think, Catherine, there are other questions, some of the questions coming in chat at the moment. On the side, I couldn't find. Will Active Learn be able to be a good revision tool like animation videos?
Yeah, so as Bill said, there aren't animations, but well, there are videos, and some of those are animations. So yes, and also the auto mark quizzes will be good for revision as well on Active Learn.
And then there is another question. Database questions in paper 1 will be on practical skills, and then PSOW still exists.
The PSOW, personal scheme of work. I would have to double check. I can't remember. Do you guys know? I can't remember. I can't remember. So again, we're not the IB. We're humble authors executing the program. Yeah, that would have to be something to be checked on the my IB website. And what was the other part of the question?
And the other part.
Oh, the database questions. Yes,
yeah.
Database. Sorry. Yes. So I believe, yeah, the person asking that question got it right. In other words, it's similar to what paper 3 was in section A. In other words, questions about skills, or questions about the scientific method in general, or the nature of science, or questions about famous experiments, or yeah, lab skills. Yeah. So the database questions might be stuff on the results of an experiment, and the student has to interpret it, think like a biologist. Yeah.
Thank you. And so somebody just wanted to confirm that if you're teaching mixed classes, it's better to get the HL book, right? I think that's what we're recommending. So yes.
If they are students in the same room at the same time.
Yeah.
And you know, if you teach nothing, some programs offer only standard level biology. And if you do, use the standard level textbook. If you have a mixture of students in the same class, different class or whatever, look at the higher level textbook, because you're going to need that textbook for your higher level students, and decide whether that textbook is easily manipulated into working for standard level students. And in my opinion, it's very easy to manipulate to use for standard level students.
And a unique situation is present, especially in North America, where we oftentimes have students in our classroom working in having to take exams in other programs, such as advanced placement biology. And in that case, the higher level biology book does quite well as far as providing the information that would allow extreme success in that particular program as well. So it would allow the greatest ability to achieve success in many areas, the higher level book.
The biggest challenge year that teachers have is this upcoming year, because not only are you going to have to decide the aspects we were just talking about, which which book for which students, but you're also going to have a year where your second year students are preparing for one exam and through one textbook, and your first year students, assuming this is a 2-year either SL or 2-year higher level class, they're going to be working from a different guide, a different textbook, etc. So it's the year where you mentally have to keep up, if you're teaching both those levels, with a whole lot more than what you typically are.
So for anybody asking about ordering samples and accessing the free trial, I have put a link in the chat, and if you scroll down, there is a talk to us button that will take you to your local Pearson contact details. And yeah, again, that link I think will also be in the follow-up email. We just have a couple more minutes. So would you suggest the students keep the paper textbook at home and use the ebook in school, or the other way around? It seems like they should be reading at home before coming to class. Do you have any thoughts on that?
That's what I do with my students. They leave them at home. They leave the paper book at home, and they just have their electronic version on their tablets or laptops.
It was my experience in dealing with any textbooks like this that if you want to get a maximum number of years out of the textbook, the printed textbook, find a way to not have students bring it back and forth from school, because they're just not going to hold up. Second year, you're going to start noticing some that are showing damage, and third year, fourth year, it gets worse and worse and worse. But if they're accessing them only at home, and you either use, as Alan said, the ebooks in the classroom, or have a small set of them to use as printed books in the classroom, then you can get around that wear and tear from transport.
Yes.
So this last screen just lets you know how to get in touch with us, and also it has the link to find your local consultant. There was another question about ebook subscription license length. So the ebook subscriptions are for 4 years. Oh, Julian, we will follow up with you separately. Okay, any more questions in the last couple of minutes, or any more thoughts from Alan, Bill and Randy? Anything else you haven't said that you'd like to say?
It's been a pleasure. Always a pleasure working with Pearson.
It's been a pleasure working with you guys too.
Yes, it's been very enjoyable.
So I think this concludes our session for today. So thank you very much for Andy, Randy and Bill. It's been great, and I hope everybody has enjoyed it. And I think it's now time to close. There's another question about how to access free trials. So you can access free trials from this page on our website that I think Catherine has already shared. Or please, if you need to get in touch with us, use the email on this slide, and we'll get back to you with all the information that you need. So thank you, everybody, and we wish you a good end of the day, and a good weekend when that comes, obviously. Thanks very much again. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.